Hello, friends! Today we'll study Waiting for Godot, a famous play written by Samuel Beckett. Before diving into the play, it's important to understand its context. Beckett wrote this play after World War II, the war that ended in 1945. We all know how much devastation, fear, and hopelessness the war brought to people's lives. The entire world was in despair, and this atmosphere also reflected in art and theater. Just like society had become meaningless after the war, theater too reflected this meaninglessness. This new form of theater came to be known as the theater of the absurd. Instead of focusing on external events, it tried to show the inner psychological turmoil of people, the storm inside them, even when they appeared normal on the outside. It depicted human frustration, anxiety, and despair. Waiting for Godot is one of the most famous examples of this absurdist theater. About the play. Unlike traditional plays, Waiting for Godot has no clear plot, no traditional storyline, and no dramatic climax. Instead, it presents two main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, who are waiting for someone named Godot. The irony is that they don't even know who Godot really is, or whether he will ever arrive. They simply keep waiting, filling the time with meaningless talk, absurd activities, and even contemplating suicide just to escape the endless waiting. This lack of meaning in the play mirrors the lack of meaning in people's lives at that time. It's a symbolic representation of the human condition, always waiting for something or someone that will supposedly make life better, but never really knowing what it is.
Themes and meaning. On the surface, Vladimir and Estragon are waiting for Godot. But on a deeper level, the play reflects the way we all live, waiting endlessly for an ideal world, perfect happiness, or some event that will solve all our problems. Just like the characters, we too spend our lives waiting for a Godot that never arrives. We hope that one day everything will be perfect, but we never really know what that perfect looks like. In the end, life passes while we keep waiting. This is the real power of Waiting for Godot. It holds up a mirror to our own lives.
Vladimir and Estragon are waiting by a tree on the side of a road for Godot. Estragon struggles to take off his boots, and in the meantime, Vladimir suddenly asks him whether he has ever read the Bible. Estragon replies that he only remembers some colorful maps of the Holy Land from it. Vladimir then recalls the story of the two thieves who were crucified alongside Jesus. According to tradition, one of them was saved. But Vladimir wonders aloud whether that story is really true and whether one thief was actually saved. While they talk, they remind themselves that they must keep waiting for Godot. But they begin to doubt if they are even waiting in the right place or whether Godot will show up that day at all. At one point, Estragon tells Vladimir, "Don't leave me alone. Stay with me. Otherwise, I'll fall asleep here." Estragon then begins to share a dream, but Vladimir interrupts, refusing to listen to his nightmares. Instead, they both agree that they must simply keep waiting, even though they don't know what else to do. In their boredom, Estragon suggests they hang themselves from the tree just to end their suffering. But then they argue over who should go first, and since neither is willing, they abandon the idea and return to waiting. Estragon soon becomes hungry, so Vladimir gives him a carrot. Just then, a loud noise is heard, the entrance of two new characters, Pozzo and Lucky. Pozzo and Lucky's entry. Pozzo is an aggressive, dominating man. He drags Lucky by a rope tied around his neck, treating him like an animal. Pozzo carries a whip in his hand, while Lucky is loaded down with heavy bags. When Vladimir and Estragon ask about them, Pozzo introduces himself proudly. He explains that Lucky is his servant. Pozzo offers food, and Estragon eagerly accepts, but Vladimir criticizes Pozzo for treating Lucky so cruelly, forcing him to carry such burdens when they could easily be set on the ground. Pozzo defends himself, claiming that Lucky obeys willingly because he wants to impress his master. He even reveals that he is planning to sell Lucky at the market. Upon hearing this, Lucky begins to cry. To repay Vladimir and Estragon for their company, Pozzo orders Lucky to dance. Lucky performs a clumsy dance. Then, with a hat placed on his head, he suddenly launches into a long, nonsensical monologue, a flood of meaningless words that shocks everyone. Finally, Pozzo decides to leave. He says goodbye to Vladimir and Estragon, though he lingers for a while before actually exiting with Lucky.
Arrival of the boy. Soon after, a boy arrives with a message. He tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming today. The boy explains that he works for Godot, tending his goats, and describes Godot as a kind master. Then the boy leaves. Vladimir and Estragon debate whether they should go as well, but in the end they decide to stay and continue waiting. Night falls, and the two men lie down to sleep. With this, Act 1 comes to an end. Act 2. The second act begins the next day, at the same place, the same time, and with the same two characters waiting by the tree. Vladimir appears on stage singing. Soon after, Estragon enters and tells Vladimir that he was beaten during the night. The two greet each other warmly, glad to see one another again. But soon the same question arises. What should they do now? Once again, the answer is simple. They must wait for Godot. Vladimir recalls Pozzo and Lucky from the previous day, but Estragon does not remember them at all. In fact, Estragon cannot even recall the details of where they had been waiting. He has forgotten everything, including their shared past experiences. A long silence follows. Neither of them speaks, and the stage is filled with emptiness.
They tried to speak, anything, to escape the silence, but neither of them had anything left to say. Nothing to fill the void or break the stillness. Estragon vaguely recalls that someone once kicked him, that he had been given a packet of chicken. He remembers so little. Vladimir offers him some radish to eat. He has no carrots left. Estragon dozes off, but suddenly wakes up and starts telling Vladimir about a dream. Vladimir stops him once again, forbidding him to speak of it. Estragon wants to leave, but Vladimir reminds him that they are waiting for the horses. They must stay. Vladimir finds a hat lying on the road. It belongs to Pozzo's servant, Lucky. Vladimir and Estragon start playing with the hat, passing it from one to the other. At last, they decide to pretend to be Pozzo and Lucky themselves, to play their roles. But it doesn't work. Pozzo exits the stage for a moment. Then, almost at once, he rushes back in, shouting, "They're coming! They're coming!" Vladimir thinks the horses have finally arrived to rescue them. Frightened, he tries to hide Estragon behind the tree, but the tree is too small to hide anyone. Their conversation grows foul and chaotic. They curse each other bitterly, then embrace again, and go back to waiting for the horses. When Pozzo and Lucky reappear, Pozzo is now blind, Lucky is now dumb. Seeing a normal man, Estragon pauses. Lucky stops and bumps into a bush. Pozzo, being blind, can't see and stumbles. When Pozzo collides with Lucky, both of them fall. Pozzo calls for help. Vladimir enjoys the scene, glad that time is passing more easily. He and Estragon help to lift them. But when asked, "Who are you?" neither Estragon nor Vladimir can answer. Vladimir tries to raise Lucky. Estragon kicks him angrily, but hurts his own foot instead and sits down, taking off his boot. Vladimir tells Pozzo to make Lucky dance again, but Pozzo says Lucky is now mute. "When did he become mute?" Vladimir asks. Pozzo snaps, "Stop tormenting me with your useless questions." Pozzo helps Lucky to his feet. They both leave. The boy returns to announce once again that Mr. Godot will not come today, but surely come tomorrow. He has forgotten that he met Vladimir and Estragon yesterday. Vladimir shouts angrily, "You've seen us now! Tomorrow don't say you're meeting us for the first time! You've seen us! Remember that!" Estragon and Vladimir think again of leaving, but they don't. They must wait for the horses. They look at the tree where they have been sitting and wonder if they should hang themselves. They try to use Estragon's belt, but it breaks under their weight. They have no rope. Once more, they decide to leave, but remain where they are. And here, the play ends.
Themes: the absurdity of life. Human existence seems pointless, repetitive, and without clear meaning, just like Vladimir and Estragon's endless waiting. Time and waiting. The act of waiting becomes the central metaphor. People live their lives waiting for change, miracles, or meaning that may never arrive. Hope and despair. Godot represents hope for a better future, yet his absence reflects despair and uncertainty. Companionship and loneliness. Vladimir and Estragon depend on each other for survival, showing the human need for connection despite constant frustration. Religion and salvation. Godot's gnome echoes God, raising questions about faith, redemption, and whether salvation will ever come. Identity and memory. Characters often forget past events, questioning the reliability of memory and even their sense of self.